In this video, I want to answer one very practical question. What is the best AI image upscaler right now? Because a lot of people still think upscaling is just about making an image bigger, but that is not really the challenge anymore. The real challenge is making an image bigger without destroying it. Without plastic skin, without fake textures, without broken text, without weird AI details that make the whole image feel less believable the more you zoom in. And that is exactly why this matters. If you work with AI images seriously, the best AI image upscaler is not just the one that increases resolution. It is the one that stays true to the original image. So for this test, I looked at several of the best-known AI image upscalers and workflows on the market. And after looking at all of them, one thing became very clear. Not all upscalers fail in the same way. Some over-sharpen, some invent detail that does not belong there, some break text, and some technically upscale the image but make it look more artificial in the process. That is the trap. Because at first glance, many upscaled images look sharper. But once you zoom in, that sharpness turns into noise. That is why this comparison gets interesting. Craya, for example, can be decent in some simpler cases. But once you start dealing with faces or design elements, the results often begin to look less natural. Adobe Firefly has a similar problem. It can handle clean material, but with humans, it quickly feels plasticky. Topaz Gigapixel is stronger. It gives you more control and stays relatively faithful to the original image. But even then, it often introduces that familiar problem. Details become sharper, but not always more believable. And that is exactly where tools like Magnific start to stand out. What I like about Magnific is that it feels more deliberate. Instead of forcing detail everywhere, it tends to preserve the overall integrity of the original image much better. Because if you are working with a cinematic image or a careful portrait, you do not want an upscaler that hallucinates too hard. You do not want the image to become a different image. You want it to become a better version of itself. That is where Magnific is genuinely strong. Cleaner detail, better preservation of image structure. That does not mean it is perfect. It is not the best for every single possible use case. And that is where Nano Banana Pro becomes very interesting. It is more like a smart image refinement workflow. Instead of only enlarging, it can reinterpret the image with much stronger realism and cleaner text handling. That makes it especially strong for graphic design compositions and cases where you want the upscale to improve the image creatively. So if I had to simplify it, Magnific is for natural fidelity. Nano Banana Pro is for refined cinematic results. And that brings us to the bigger question. Can AI upscalers actually get you to billboard size? The answer is yes, but usually not with one lazy click. That is the important part. If you want true large format output, the smartest workflow is usually not one single tool from start to finish. It is a layered workflow. First, you use a strong workflow like Magnific or Nano Banana Pro to create the best possible high-resolution base image. Then, if you need even more size for print, you take that improved asset into something like Gigapixel and scale it further. That is where the real quality comes from. Not from blindly making the image huge, but from choosing the right tool. And that is why I think Magnific deserves to be in the top tier of this conversation. Because a lot of upscalers can make things larger. Far fewer can make them larger and still feel professional. Far fewer can protect the integrity of the original shot. And far fewer feel useful for serious creative work. So if you're asking me for the best, my honest answer is that it depends. But for natural quality, Magnific is one of the smartest choices. And if your goal is maximum output quality, the real answer is not just one tool, it is the workflow. Because the best creators are not looking for magic buttons. They are building smarter pipelines. And right now, Magnific is the strongest part of that pipeline.